Hi, I have been away for a while and I am back. And I actually gave this presentation to a group of dentists last night over Zoom. And I thought, why should they have all the fun? So here it is. How to attain financial wellness. It's an introduction really to financial life planning. Here I give my little stats that I'm a senior financial planner, that I've had 17 years in the business. I am, if you don't already know, I am an immigrant, actually. I came to the United States when I was a baby. I was 10 years old when I became a naturalized citizen, and I'm Filipino American. I grew up with my grandparents, my aunt, my mom. My dad was not in the picture and was definitely not a contributor financially to the household. And so that kind of affected how I viewed myself as a child. So really growing up, I didn't really have very many strong role models of financial responsibility or financial wellness. So I just picked up what I saw. And that's typically how it goes, because you learn about the financial world through observing whoever is around you participate in financial transactions. I grew up lower middle class in a very upper middle class white suburban community in Northern California. So I grew up kind of feeling like other than already. I do not have a trust fund, and I for sure have student loan debt. As we get started in this, I want you to look at your own personal financial story with curiosity. I want you to listen for the similarities, and I want you to listen for the resonance with your own personal finance story. Suspend any judgments you have of past financial decisions, because they're, it's in the past, and we're here right now, and we're gonna do what we can to make your situation from this point forward a better one. I like this quote. It's from Natalie Torres Haddad, and she says, "It's not necessarily how much you make or how much you save, it's really what makes you feel comfortable, happy, and secure." Yeah, pretty much. So, knowing that, or keeping that in mind, what is financial planning compared to life coaching, compared to asset management? Well, financial planning is a 6-pillar modality of trying to achieve financial wellness. It encompasses retirement planning, estate planning, investment management, insurance, tax planning, employee benefits. On the life coaching side, we are looking at identifying behaviors, your perspective. We typically go through what's called a values clarification, visioning exercises, goal setting. We're going to talk about implementing, maybe some action steps, and whether or not you need support or accountability around the goals that we've set forth. And another part of achieving financial wellness is asset management. And so that's the investment strategy, your asset allocation, risk tolerance, investment selection, your tax efficiency, capital gains and losses, and rebalancing. So in my experience, you need all 3 of these to be working at the same time. You don't necessarily stay in one track. You might jump around. My approach to financial planning is a holistic one, which means that I'm looking at the entire person. I don't believe that you can work on financial goals in isolation of other life goals. I think you're more apt to have success with financial planning when you think about all of it, not just whether or not you have the right investment strategy. Do any of these sound familiar to you? Money will give me meaning, or money is bad, or it's impolite to talk about money, or more money will make things better, or I don't deserve money, or there will never be enough money, or there will always be enough money, or money is unimportant. Well, think back. Think back to your growing up. Think back to your childhood. We learn about the world of finance through observing the adults we're surrounded by. And it can be an informal education, like it typically is. It's not typically found in a North American high school curriculum. Maybe it is now. Maybe it's a part of it, but at least when I was in school, it was definitely not part of the curriculum. And so you're left to learn about the financial world through what you observe. And you kind of just pick up the personal views and values of the people around you until you become conscious enough to shift them into making your own conclusions around money, which is what you're going to work on with me today. Okay, so there's a thing called generational financial trauma, and that's when you kind of absorb the financial trauma of the generation before you. So if you're a millennial, chances are your parents may have been affected to some degree by the housing crisis in about 2007, 2009. Research has shown that millennials are actually a little more conservative than their parents when it comes to investing because they witnessed their parents go through that financial downturn. Money thoughts and money ideas get passed down through the generations. So your grandparents likely might have been Depression era or around during World War II, and resources might have been plentiful or non-existent, and those dictate how they show up in the world. Alright, so what does that mean? I kind of joke here, but you do inherit some things, or you could inherit some maladaptive behaviors, which are behaviors that are not the best coping mechanisms to financial matters. And they could be financial dependency, compulsive spending, underspending, workaholism, financial avoidance, lack of financial boundaries, a scarcity mindset, or excessive risk aversion. So there's a guy named Brad Klontz, and he came up with what's called the Klontz Money Script Inventory, KMSI. It's a survey or a quiz that you can take that helps you identify which of the 4 money scripts that he identified most folks fall into. And there are more than 4, but the main ones are money avoidance, money worship, money status, and money vigilance. So we'll go through them kind of quickly here. I have a few other videos where I talk about these, but money avoidance is the practice of ignoring your financial situation even if it's to your detriment. Someone who is avoidant might not be looking at their statements or even logging into their bank account, doesn't really know where they stand financially at any given point. And not to say that everybody knows all the time where they stand financially, but there are some people, and maybe you're one of them, who just chooses to avoid it altogether, either because you don't actually understand what you're looking at, or there's some fear, some other feelings that are coming up. There's actually a cycle when it comes to money avoidance, and it usually starts with feeling ashamed or anxious about overspending and neglecting money management. The next stage is you just avoid looking at your checking or your credit card accounts because you don't want to look at those balances because they confirm what you already kind of think is going on. Stage 3, you can overspend, and that can be to try to overcome these negative feelings of guilt and shame about spiraling debts. And then stage 4, stress and anxiety and the worry increase because the debts increase. So it's just this vicious cycle. And if you've fallen maybe into a money avoidance cycle, there's hope because there's help. And maybe the first step is just identifying that maybe you're in that cycle. The next money script is worship, money worship. So someone who worships money might say something like this: if I could just buy X, I would be happy. They might also say, with enough money, all of my problems would go away. Or, wealth is freedom. Worshippers assign a lot of power to money. The next money script is money status, and someone who has this money script might be saying, I don't want people to know that I'm poor. I feel better about myself when I have brand new clothes on and people see me in my new clothes, or I want people to see me drive around town in a BMW. The money says something about them, and so purchases aren't necessarily enjoyed in whatever joy that they bring. It's more just an object so that they can be seen with it. And to be perfectly honest with you, I've cycled through these money scripts at different points in my life. One of these, or all of these, or some of these have been kind of active in my life. Maybe they're active in yours right now. This brings up this idea of whether or not retail therapy is actual therapy, or is it really self-sabotage? When I go through the exercise with my clients where I have them look back at the expenses that they've incurred over the past 3 months, and then I have them highlight discretionary spending, I'm looking for trends. I'm hoping they pick up on trends so that we can identify if maybe there is some impulse spending or some kind of coping through spending that is problematic. And if it is apparent that there is some maladaptive coping or use of shopping to feel better, I suggest either outside help, that they seek therapy, along with working with a financial planner or a financial coach to work through these issues. All right, so the next script is money vigilance. Of the four, this one might be the healthiest, if you want to call it that, because in this money script, the person is not wanting to spend money. They're hyper-vigilant. Maybe they're looking at their bank statements or their credit card or their brokerage account like on a daily basis, maybe multiple times during the day, and they're hyper-vigilant. They feel as though at any given time that their financial life is just going to crumble around them if they're not careful. This can be taken like really extreme, and things like deferring or delaying or even just avoiding altogether any kind of spending that might be necessary. So potential medical treatments or going to the dentist. This person might be so hypervigilant that they don't want to spend any money on themselves, even when it is related to health. So what are you going to do with this information? Well, I want you to slow down. I want you to think through your financial decision. Take a breath. Think. Am I making this decision through the lens of like a money script, or is this actually what I want to do? Another thing I want you to do is talk about it with someone. We live in a society where talking about money is taboo, and if you can normalize conversations around money, maybe you won't feel so alone with money making decisions, and maybe you'll be more receptive to advice if that's what you want, or maybe you'll just hear through the sharing of others around you that they've had experience with a financial situation that you're going through, and maybe they have some pointers. But don't suffer in silence. Open up if you can, and there are groups where you can talk about this in the self-help world. There is DA, which is Debtors Anonymous, where you can talk about these coping mechanisms that come up for you, or you might talk about it with a financial coach or a financial planner or a therapist. How are financial decisions made in your house? Are they made like the happy couple in this picture here, holding in a bunch of money and smiling and looking at their statements and smiling? Or are you like this couple that is trying to add it all up and see if it makes sense, balance their budget? Ideally, you look like this couple. This couple is collaborative in their financial planning and financial decision making. And you know what? I hope that that's where your family lands, because a united vision for the future of what you're trying to accomplish as a family is going to help you get to that goal. And being comfortable with your spouse, your partner, even your children about talking about money issues takes practice, if it's not already a practice in your household. One way you do that is you slowly introduce conversations around money in a weekly interval. So with a particular client that I've been working with, they've dedicated 20 minutes of dinner time to talk about where they both stand financially that week, how they feel about spending or not spending, scarcity or surplus. But it's a venue and a time and a place where they both can communicate with each other about money. My hope for them is through that regular practice of speaking about money and opening up about money that they get really comfortable talking about it. All right, so what is important to you about money? What is important to you about money? If you have a piece of paper in front of you, I just want you to jot down like 5 reasons why money is important to you. And while you do that, I'm gonna have a sip of water because I'm thirsty. Oh my gosh. Hydrate. It's important. It's good for you. Hydrate and pay attention to your finances. That's it. That's the end of the presentation. Okay, so what did you write down? What were your 5 reasons? Or what about money is important to you? In my work with clients, their answers typically center around some variation of these that I've just listed here. I want to take care of my family. I want a house. I want my children to have a good start in life. I want to be able to enjoy life. And I want to be able to retire. So any kind of variation of those are typically what I see in my work with clients. So when clients make these statements about the importance of money to them, I'm listening for values. And you can see here in this slide that when someone says, I want to take care of my family, okay, that one's easy, family. But if someone says, I want to buy a house, I don't know what their reasons are, and I might ask for more information. Achievement, security, that might be part of their value system and might be the reason why they want to buy a house. So do any of these values resonate with you? I put 15 here on this slide, and I'm going to put in the notes section a handout, and it has 119 different values. But actually, what I want you to do is pause this video, get out a piece of paper or type it up. But before you even look at these, come up with your own. Come up with 10 values that are important to you. So yeah, what do you want? What do you want? Okay? And it's important to note that values are different than morals. At least the way I see it, values are what you want for yourself, and morals are what society wants for you. So what do you want? What do you want your life to look like next week, next year, 5 years, 10 years? Write it down. Journal it out. Be specific. If you want to go on a vacation next year to the Philippines, I want you to be able to envision yourself on the beach, feeling the humidity, the warmth of the sun on your skin. I want you to think about the hotel you'll stay in and the flight and the kind of foods you'll eat and who you'll be there with. I also want you to do that for every other interval here. Year 3, year 5, and year 10. If, let's say, in 3 years you want to be able to buy a house, where do you want to buy the house? How big of a house? How many rooms? How many bathrooms? Who's living there with you? What kind of furniture? Get really specific and make it real. It makes this exercise really fun. All right, so what is personal fulfillment? Well, you get to define that for yourself. But in my research, I went along and I found this definition, which I really love, and I'll read it here. A positive appraisal of the person you've become, how you've led your life, and the impact you've had on others. So think about it. What do you want people to say about you at the end of your life? What kind of person were you? What did you help others do? And likely the answer to this question is going to be a tip or a clue as to more of your values. One of the tools that I use to help clients identify areas of their life that they'd like to work on is this wheel of life. And I've talked about it before. In this particular wheel of life, we have personal growth, physical environment, career, family and friends, significant other and romance, fun and recreation, health and money. There are circles within the wheel of life. They go 1 through 10, kind of like a target. I want you to rank each one of these areas of your life, 1 through 10. How satisfied or how fulfilled are you in any one of these areas? One thing to keep in mind is that this is an assessment today of your fulfillment in this particular area, okay? This is not like how fulfilled you will be, it's how fulfilled you are right now. So go through each section, get a marker, and trace over the line that corresponds with your ranking, 1 through 10. And what you'll note is not all areas of your life are going to have equal weight of fulfillment all the way around. Some might be in deficit, some might be right up there at 10. There's no way you're going to have all of these at 10 all the time. Some might be getting more attention from you right now. And the key is right now. You can change, you can refocus. What you see right now in front of you doesn't necessarily have to continue to be the story. So I want you to go through this exercise and try to identify for yourself what areas of your life could maybe use more attention. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about goal setting, and I like to do this with that long list of values you just came up with. I want to make sure that those values are showing up in your goals. I want to make sure that the goals that you've put down honor those values. And you might already have financial goals, and you might not even realize that they're linked to your values. So go through your own goals and try to parse out the value that gets honored. So for example, if someone tells me, I want to have sufficient cash flow to meet my family's monthly expenses comfortably, then I might be thinking this person is valuing family and maybe valuing ease around money. And if someone is talking to me about wanting to buy a house, that could be achievement or security. If they want to send their kids to the best schools, then maybe they value education. If they want to take their family on an international vacation, then leisure. And if they want to have a comfortable retirement, then maybe it's rest. When you've identified the goals you'd like to work on, I want you to go back and refine them so that they are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. I want them to be specific. I want you to be able to tell me what it is that you want to achieve in dollars and cents, if that's possible. And if it is dollars and cents, then it kind of automatically becomes measurable, right? I can tell how close you are to achieving that goal because you've set a dollar amount. Have a goal that's attainable, not I want to have a bajillion dollars in my bank account. Okay, like what's actually possible with what income you make? And you can aim high, but make it something that is attainable because then it's more real. Make it relevant, and the way you're going to do that is make sure it's your own goal, right? Not someone else's goal for you, but your own goal. That's how you make it relevant to you. And time bound. So when do you want to achieve this goal by? I have a few examples here. So if someone is saying, have a home I can be proud of and build home equity in. All right, so if I run through this filter, this SMART filter, then the goal might sound like this instead. I want to have a 20% down payment on a $800,000 house in Happy Town. So this person has identified the amount of down payment, how much of a house they want to buy, and in which neighborhood. And they want to have their down payment by 36 months. And they even went as far as to say that they're willing to devote 20% of their income, current income, towards this savings goal. This is excellent. Next example is if someone is saying, I want to send my children to the best schools. For this particular instance, it might mean sending them to private schools. And so if we're making SMART goals, we're saying something like this. In 48 months, I want to have sufficient cash flow in my budget to send my twins to private schools with tuition of up to $20,000 each year, grades K through 12. So specific. $20,000 time bound in 48 months, and then the duration, right? From kindergarten to 12th grade. If someone says, have enough saved for a comfortable retirement, great. That's a very worthwhile goal. But can we set some specificity with that goal, right? So when I retire in 20 years, I want to have the equivalent of $2.5 million in today's dollars saved in a combination of cash, portfolio investments, and this should provide me with recurrent portfolio income to maintain my lifestyle. What I love about this is they've already identified that they're willing to work for another 20 years and that they have a goal of $2.5 million by the time they retire. I think I have one more example here. So another goal might be take my family on an international vacation. Fantastic. That sounds great. But can you be a little bit more specific, dear client? Okay. They come back and say, I want to go on a $20,000 international vacation with my family annually, starting when my children turn 8 years old and until they're 18 years old. When goals are set and they are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound, they become more real. Okay, so I then ask my clients, what are you doing today in pursuit of these goals? And are your activities linking up? When people are engaging in activities that do not align with their values, they become unhappy and dissatisfied. And you are in control of your daily activities, and they can help you get closer to achieving your goals, which helps you get closer to honoring your values. And when that happens, people become more fulfilled. What does financial freedom mean to you? Well, for some folks, it is exiting the time and effort economy and entering into the results economy. You've exited the time and effort economy when your money is making money for you. And there's a very intelligent man named Robert Kiyosaki who has been prolific in his production of personal finance books, and I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I think when I was maybe a freshman in college, so like 17, 18 years old, and it spoke to me because I identified. In the book, he talks about his own father wanted him to go and get a really good, high-paying job. And his friend's father wanted him and his friend to learn the value of investing as a means of producing an income. And one of the tools that comes out of that book is this cash flow quadrant. And you can see here on the left side, you have employees and a self-employed. And on the right side, you have business owners and investors. On the left side, people are earning income. And on the right side, the income comes to them passively. Kiyosaki asserts that you really want to be on the right side of this quadrant, either business owner or an investor. That's how you really get ahead financially. It's not to say that if you're an employee that you can't be successful financially. It just means that maybe if you are an employee, your strategy then to get into the passive income game is to be really diligent about saving in your 401k, potentially even more savings on top of what you put in your 401k so that your portfolio can start producing income for you. You know, you can be a business owner and have 100% ownership of your business or 50% or 10%. And ideally, equity that you have in that business pays you regardless whether or not you show up to the office or not, because you're an owner, right? You get to participate in the profits. That's how investing works too, right? You're buying a stock, which is a share. So you're purchasing this promise that there will be some future profit. It's not always the case. It's a risk and reward game, right? So you play and you get rewarded if the company follows through on their promise. When it works well, and over time it tends to, and if you're invested for many years, overall the stock market will return a rate of return that's going to be sufficient for you to reach your financial goals. Well, like I said, if you're self-employed or you're an employee, you want to get out of the trap of needing to convert your time and energy for an income. So the portfolio provides you a venue to do that. An investor might also invest in something like real estate, where the recurrent income then is rental income. Investor in this quadrant is broad. It doesn't necessarily have to be a stock market portfolio, but in my experience, if you are an employee or a self-employed person, it's potentially the more efficient means of getting to the right side of the cash flow quadrant. In 12-Step Recovery, we talk a lot about what's within your control. And the fact of the matter is, a lot is out of our control. But there are things that we can control. I can't control how others take care of themselves. I can't control the opinions of others, the past or the future, what people think of me. But I can control what I give my energy to, how I speak to myself, my own boundaries, how I handle challenges. So this same concept, I translated this into like the financial world, and there are a lot of things out of my control, right? Like I can't control when the interest rate changes, or if Congress decides that they want to change tax laws, the rate of unemployment, or the strength of the dollar. What's in my control though is how I decide to invest, if I'm going to participate in a 401k, for example. Decide what is within my control is where I work, how much money I make, how much money I spend, how I choose my investments, if I create a financial plan. All of those things are within my control. It's important for me that my clients understand which financial levers are available to them. You know, money isn't everything, but if you want to fund these goals, we're going to have to make some changes, and potentially increasing your income is one of them. And as you can see here, you can control how much you earn. You do right now practice a degree of agency about how much you earn. Can you decide where you earn? Most people are employed at will, meaning you go there on your own volition to earn a living. What things do you need to prioritize so you can increase your earnings? What's the highest and best use of your time? What are high value activities? What skills that you can level up so you can potentially get paid more? What new career path might you consider? The next financial lever is how much you spend now. How are you spending your money? I said this before, what happens in vagueness stays in vagueness, which is to say that if you don't know where your money is going, then you're more likely to continue to, stay in a fog around your financial situation. And it's going to be very difficult to kind of climb out of that. And maybe the money script that is at play for you, if that's an issue, is this money avoidance script. And so that might mean that you get outside help through either a therapist or a financial coach or financial planner. Those might be the steps you need to take now so you can rein in your spending, so you can have a better understanding of where your money goes. Most of our economy is driven by consumerism, so it should be no surprise that people fall into some financial traps. I want to share with you this concept of lifestyle creep, which is related to spending. Essentially, it goes like this. As your income increases, you find that you can afford more things. Great. More creature comforts, maybe a nicer car, nicer house, what have you. What ends up happening is your income increases. That's fantastic. But if your expenses are increasing at the same rate, there really isn't this margin of free cash flow that you can benefit from that can go towards savings, right? So it's not what you make, it's what you keep, right? You've heard it before, and there's a reason why it's stuck around as something people say. It's because it's true, right? So let's get in the habit of making sure that we are living below our means. Another thing we can control is our savings. How much do you put in your emergency fund? Is it 3, 6, 9, 12 months worth of living expenses? Do you even know what your living expenses are? That might mean you need to go back to tracking your spending so that you have a spending plan so you can answer that question. How much money does it cost to run your household? That should be something you know so that you can make this decision. What amount of your income should be saved on a recurring basis towards your goals? How much will you need to save, for example, to reach your retirement goal? You can decide how you want to invest. You can't necessarily dictate the outcome of the stock market or the housing market, but you can decide if you even buy that house or that rental property, or if you put your money in a S&P 500 mutual fund or an international growth fund. Another thing you can control is how you invest, which type of investment vehicles you decide to use, which accounts you put your assets into, how often you rebalance your portfolio, whether or not you get professional help to do it, or if you remain a do-it-yourselfer. Those are the factors that are within your control. You can't, like I said before, we can't control what the stock market will do, but we have choice and agency over how we want to participate. You can make those decisions. You have agency over those factors of your portfolio. Another of the levers is deciding on when you will retire and how long you are going to work in order to fund your retirement goal. And if you are behind in your retirement savings, it might mean that working one or a few more years is the answer so that you can maintain your living standard. But if you maybe are going to say, maybe I'll go on one last trip, I really just want to retire now, then that's a decision you have to make for yourself. But that's another lever, right? How much are you going to spend in retirement? So those are things that are within your control. One of the case studies I use in my presentation is this hypothetical family. They have $250,000 in recurrent annual income that comes into their household. Enrique and Rosa are in their early 40s and they plan to work for another 25 years, and they're currently saving about 20% of their annual income. So First, let's figure out how much they're spending on their expenses after taxes, right? So first I'm going to calculate here what their federal income tax is. And so I look at the federal tax bracket that they fall into, which is the 24% marginal tax rate, 190 to 364. I do the calculations here in 1, 2, 3 steps. Of course, these are rough cuts. I don't factor in the child credits, but for just this purpose of just kind of trying to figure out in rough numbers how much they're going to need for retirement, we'll just use this as a framework. I do the same calculation and try to figure out what the family can expect to pay in California taxes. Well, in retirement, we're hoping that Rosa and Enrique will have paid off their home, and currently their mortgage is adding up to about $50,000 annually in. That's no longer an expense. We can reduce their required income in retirement. Another thing to keep in mind is that the Gomez family was putting $37,000 of their income away for saving towards retirement. Well, when you're in retirement, you don't need to save for retirement anymore. So you can deduct that from your living expenses. So in essence, the Gomez family is actually living on $100,000 annually. That's the amount of money that they need to maintain their lifestyle. How do we get them to $100,000 in recurrent income? Currently, they're earning income that produces $100,000 in discretionary spending. We'll call it that, in spending that they use to run their household. What I do is I divide that $100,000 by $40,000, and then I take that number and I multiply it by 1 million, and that gets me $2.5 million in retirement savings. So in today's dollars, they're going to need to have saved $2.5 million in their retirement portfolio to produce $100,000 in recurrent income. You might be thinking, well, you haven't factored in Social Security, which is absolutely right. I have not. And I use a really conservative number in this example, but if they have a benefit of $30,000 in Social Security income coming into their household, then they actually only really need to take $70,000 out of their portfolio annually. So if I divide that $70,000 by $40,000, I get $1,750,000. So actually, instead of having $2.5 million in their portfolio by the time they are retired, they really need 1.7. How much do they need to save per month to get to the goal of maintaining a $100,000 lifestyle? Well, it means that they need to be saving $2,300 a month. What is the 4% safe withdrawal rate? Well, I'm so glad you asked, because that's what helps make the Gomez family's retirement plan work. Essentially, it says this: for every $1 million in your portfolio, you can rely on $40,000 of recurrent income into perpetuity, which is a fancy word of saying from now until you die. It assumes that inflation will stay constant at 3%. It assumes that your portfolio can return at least an average rate of return of 8%. And the Safe Withdrawal program also protects the principal investment, so you'll never dip into the principal, which is great for those folks who have children or heirs or organizations they'd like to leave money to. Also, the annual distribution of $40,000 gets adjusted upwards to keep up with inflation. What's really cool about this is that your portfolio income will adjust every year by 3%. So your $40,000 will go up by 3% every year, and so on. So that continues on, so that you don't lose what we call purchasing power. Your dollar right now is worth the most it'll ever be. Next year, it'll be 3% less, right? So your dollar now is worth $1, and a year from now, if inflation stays at 3%, like in this example, your dollar buys you 97 cents worth of stuff. Make sense? So what you want is, if you do have like this steady stream of income, that it ratchets up every year to keep up with inflation. And that's exactly what the safe withdrawal rate does. When you subtract out inflation and your safe withdrawal of 4% from that 8% average rate of return, you're left with a 1% margin. And that can be used to add growth to the portfolio, or it can be used if you have a managed portfolio portfolio, that asset management piece is paid for potentially by a fee in your portfolio. So that might be where that 1% margin goes. But it holds. This plan can work. And, you might be saying, well, I don't have $1 million in my portfolio. Okay, so just proportionally, let's just do the math. So if you have $250,000 in your portfolio, that means if you do the 4% safe withdrawal rate, you can reliably withdraw $10,000 from your portfolio. So that's why we want to get you into a savings habit that bolsters retirement savings. On the passive income side, that's the engine, that's how the money earns the money to fund your retirement. So keep that in mind as you go through your financial planning. And in a different presentation, I'm going to talk to you about the nuts and bolts of asset management and how we'll put a plan in place so that your portfolio can run smoothly. So thank you so much for being here. If you have suggestions on what content you'd like to see, or if you want me to help you understand some of these concepts in more detail, you can drop a comment below if you're watching this on YouTube. Remember, I wish you prosperity and abundance in all things today and every day. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.